Hello, everybody, and we are here again. Me and Frankie. Let's talk draft. I'm excited to be here today. There's a lot of fun topics. Obviously, the scouting combine kicked off. We're rolling right into it. But first, Frankie, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a fine day, fine afternoon, and I'm just out here living life. Excited to talk about the exciting news happening around the combine. A lot of stuff going on with the NFL. A lot of potential trades brewing. It seems like it's about to bubble over. The pot's about to just burst. And who knows where the first domino is going to fall. But I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well.
For real, there's so much going on right now. This is like I don't know. This is obviously peak football is in the middle, probably when the Broncos are winning a Super Bowl or in the playoffs or something like that. But the team building aspect, period, is fantastic. I love it. Combine time, rolling our way into free agency, draft. I love the discussion that happened. There's so much fun and an intelligent football conversation everywhere. I hope you guys are just following the right people. But I mentioned it earlier. Scouting combine kicked off. We got to see some D linemen, some linebackers, some stuff like that. Front seven guys on defense, which I love. That's my favorite position to study. That defensive end position, I love. That outside linebacker, the edge. That's my favorite position to sit there and look at when I'm studying the stuff. But who stood out to you, Frankie, at the combine? Specifically, let's go edge rusher first. Was there anybody that you were like, damn, I have to watch him if you haven't? Or
Hmm.
anybody that really confirmed what your priors were?
People that kind of jumped out. Isaiah Land was someone that looks really good, but I probably won't get to watch. He played at HBCU, so I probably won't get the opportunity to actually go peek him. But he did pretty well. I was impressed by what Keon White was able to accomplish. But honestly, a lot of confirmations. I don't really. The combine doesn't really spark up too many guys at this point that I haven't seen too much. They don't really. Combine doesn't do too great of a job of always like inviting guys that I think are really lower on the ladder. But some guys that kind of jumped out. Zach Pickens was pretty good. There was an Oklahoma defensive tackle whose name is escaping me, who made some plays that I remember seeing from the Senior Bowl. But really, for guys that stood out on the edge position, Nolan Smith went
No,
absolutely
yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
which
he
was
was
pretty
crazy.
expected for anyone who didn't see. This is like what RAS is. There's the thing where you can see their relative athletic score, I believe it is, towards the position that's every other player in their database of players that's been drafted. With the numbers that Nolan Smith put up today, if he were to test as a wide receiver, I know this is kind of a silly metric, he would have been a 9.99 as a receiver.
Yeah.
This dude ran, what was it? Was it a 4.39 or something?
It was a 4.39, and that's in the 99 or the 99.9 percentile of guys playing his position running that fast. 4.39 is ridiculous for a defensive end type prospect and edge rusher. So that's super exciting. He also, Frankie, just to throw out some of the numbers right there, he 2.58 in the 20-yard split, a 1.52 in the 10-yard split. Both of those were in the 99th percentiles as well. Like, dude is crazy. Vertical 41 and a half inches. Like, what else could you ask for from him going into this, right?
Yeah. No, and I think there's going to be some people that kind of look at his frame. He is 6'2", like 238. He's a little bit one of those leaner linebackers. But the thing is, like, guys, you just got to look at the tape. Nolan Smith is a physical presence on the edge. Like, he sets a pretty decent edge. Like, he plays hard. He's flexible. He's like Gumby out there, which is pretty cool. He's one of those guys in this class that he'll just be able to do some things that a lot of guys can't. And Nolan Smith is a quality player that's just doing more and more to cement himself as another one of these Georgia defensive players that's probably going to go in the top 20, 25, 30 picks. So, I mean, he looked really good. Will Anderson kind of tested, I think, how you'd expect. He looked like the prototype. 40-yard dash doesn't really – I mean, first of all, a lot of these numbers are kind of – I don't want to say irrelevant. They're obviously relevant. But, you don't want to invest too much in these. You want to believe more in the tape. Will Anderson, some people might react to his 40-yard dash time a little bit because, like, it looked like a little bit of a higher number. His 10-yard split was fine, which is the bigger thing about these guys. But, I mean, just to emphasize how good Nolan Smith was, Will Anderson's, I believe, was a 1.61 for his 10-yard split, which is kind of like a really good, shows their explosiveness and their get off and stuff. You already said Nolan Smith was like a 1.52, was it? That's like a whole tenth of a second faster. Like, it's just crazy how fast these dudes are flying out there.
There are, and there was no shortage of them. In my opinion, Frankie, and tell me what you think. I think that the edge position is the freakiest position. I do. I think out of every position on the football field, usually those edge guys are the freakiest because athleticism, size, all of that type of stuff, those talents that you can't learn, they correlate directly. And you can tell when you sit there and you look at a list of the guys, top 10 sacks. Let's just throw a crazy one out there, something like that. Almost all of them are going to be crazy athletes, insane athletes, honestly. Start looking at the relative athletic scores of those guys. And, maybe I tweet something out like this after. I haven't really looked at it, but I almost guarantee you all those guys are going to be at least like 90th percentile athletes at their position.
No, 100%. Yeah. Edges like that. I'd say offensive tackle is one that it translates super well. I mean, most of these positions, it does translate very well, but they're the ones you can definitely pay attention to. But yeah, as we've already been aware of, this is a deep defensive line and edge class. I mean, there were guys just flying all over the board. I do want to mention one other guy that's kind of going to be one thing I will say about this class. There's a good amount of tweeners. What a tweener is you kind of don't necessarily know where you want to play them. Do you want to play them more on the inside as more of a 3 defensive tackle type guy? Do you want to put them on the edge and let them kind of use their explosiveness a little bit more? There's a lot of those guys that, whether it's their frame or just kind of their length and their arms, or how they were utilized in college, that we're just not necessarily sure where they're going to fit in the NFL. And today we saw a good amount of those guys, but they tested out of the gym, man. Adetomiwa, Adebare, I'm not going to try it. AA Battery, Northwestern, defensive lineman. You heard me talk about him in our Senior Bowl episode. I'm a really big fan of his. He tested out of the freaking gym today, man. Let me see if I got it here. So he's 6'2", 282 pounds. He had 33 inch arms. He ran a 4.59 in the 40. I believe it was confirmed at actually a 4.49, if I'm not mistaken. I might have actually mistaken that. 161 10-yard dash. So he had the exact same 10-yard split as Will Anderson, which is just ridiculous for a guy who weighs 50 pounds more. And then you also had a 37.5-inch vertical. This guy is explosive to a T, and it shows up all over the tape. Awesome to see him testing as well as he is, but kind of makes me a little sad because a guy I thought might be able to slip through the cracks a little bit and maybe appear in that mid-60s area where Denver might be selecting. I don't think he's going to be available that late. So he was another guy that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, now definitely not. Like when you look at those numbers for the position he plays, because he is one of those juiced up interior guys, right, Frankie? He's one of those guys that's going to beat you with his athleticism a lot of the time. He might get under you because of that shorter, stouter frame. I'm sure he has a lot of power in those legs. He gets under you easier, but he's a juiced up defensive tackle, and then interior defensive lineman. I don't know what you would what would you kind of classify?
So I mean, I think he's going to be playing on the interior mostly. I don't think a team is actually going to play him on the edge too much, but I mean, he could end up being one of those guys where you can just kind of slot anywhere, kind of like a guy we're going to be talking about later, Draymond Jones.
That's why I asked.
A guy you can really see fitting in everywhere. I'd say that they're kind of a great comp for each other, honestly. I haven't really looked at the metrics to see what they actually look like, but as far as like how they play, what the tape actually says, I mean, that's kind of a comparison I see, but it's probably from me just watching too much Denver and trying to, find these players and other people.
Yeah. And another dude that, Frankie, that kind of just confirmed everything I saw on film was Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. Just like, okay, is 10-yard split not crazy? But if you want him to run in a straight line, really great athlete. He's a big dude. He has long arms. He was exactly kind of what I figured he would be, which is a really good athlete with one little area that he isn't excelling, or he graded good, but it wasn't over the top, and that's kind of exactly what I saw in film. Do you kind of agree with me there?
No, yeah, I completely agree. I didn't end up seeing his agility scores, which I'd be interested in looking into. I'm sure his 3-cone, like that's the one for me because my big gripe with him. I just don't see a lot of bend around that corner. But yeah, I think he was a good example of someone who really confirmed his stuff. And I mean, again, I think he'll be a productive player wherever he ends up. What's important for him too is probably the interviews. I mean, that's always such a big part of this whole process.
Totally. And you mentioned that your defensive tackle from Northwestern, I'm not even going to AA is what I'm going to go with, like you, Frankie. Is there any other defensive tackles that stood out? I was looking at like Gervin Dexter from Florida, who had a really good day out there testing. Any other defensive tackles before we move on here?
So Kalijah Cansey was a guy I thought had a really nice day. I mean, he's a guy I think a lot of people saw had a nice day. Out of Pitt, people are going to compare him to Aaron Donald because he's like the most recent Pitt defensive lineman that's also super freaky athletic. He is a very good prospect, but guys, we can't call people Aaron Donald. Come on now. So he ran like a 4.7 40 at 280. I mean, that's pretty crazy. 1.64 40 or a 10-yard split. He did some pretty impressive things, and he's another guy that's just kind of like you see a lot of the twitch on film, but also kind of a tweener. And then another guy I forgot to point out from the edge that I just found. I mean, this you see so much on tape, but it's just a number that I really enjoyed looking at. And a guy I'm hopeful he's one of those guys that could maybe fall down to Denver. Zach Harrison, man, 36-inch arms at 274. That's nice, man. Those are some hooks. Those are some hooks you can work with, and he's going to be able to set an edge at the league right away. You know, I think he's going to be able to play the run really well at the next level. You know, he might have to get taught a few things, but I think he'll be able to be really impactful on defense on day one.
Okay, what about linebackers, Frankie? What do you see there?
So D Winters was a guy I thought tested pretty well, who I've liked a lot. But honestly, I didn't get to watch too much of the linebackers today. Mm-hmm. I saw that who was it? Will McDonald, who's an edge, but I don't know, people for some reason put him at linebacker. He was a guy who tested really well because he was jumping out of the gym like a lot of people expected.
Yeah. I saw what was the Auburn linebacker? Owen, I can never pronounce his last name. It's Papo, I think, or something like that.
Okay, yeah. I know you're talking about.
He ran a 4.5 flat, which I thought was impressive, especially at that's just a really, really great side. That's a really, really great time for a linebacker. So yeah, maybe just throw him in there, but I wasn't able to watch much of the linebackers either. Obviously working today. We have other stuff going on. We'll catch up. And for next episode, we'll roll through all of it. We may even recap some of the stuff at defensive tackle D end, everything like that. But before we move on, I want to talk about some of the Broncos too in this episode. What did you, any overarching thoughts on what you've seen so far? I guess you kind of already said the tweener, but anything else before we move on?
I'd say that I feel every day I feel a little bit better about the Bradley Chubb trade. I know I'm probably the main guy who is anti that, but not the main guy, but this edge class is deep, man. You really see it every single time these guys get put on the field. There are a lot of really talented players that I think will be available, and I think that with where Denver is in the position right now, where they have the back-to-back picks in the third round, I think that there will be a guy available for them there that if it ends up having to be a Draymond Jones replacement, they could possibly make that work, or an eventual Draymond Jones replacement. If they wanted to find a better guy to be more of a 3-down impact outside linebacker and then, be able to rotate in Benito as more of a pass rush specialist, that'd be fine. But I feel a lot better about that every single day for the Broncos.
Yeah, well, you're kind of leading us into the next part here. Not a edge rusher, but I do want to talk to you about Draymond Jones, who had played right next to that guy, and maybe does play even just a little bit. He does go over there, and he can go over there. We've seen him play, be successful over on the edge type area in the past. What do you make of this contract negotiation drama that everyone seems to have an opinion on? I think it's the hot button topic of Broncos country right now. With the Draymond Jones, what would they pay him? What would you do there, Frankie? What's your opinion?
I would pay Draymond Jones. I am of the mindset that you've stated it many times. He is the exact type of player that you reward with a contract. He is the exact type of player you build around. He's been so impactful for the Broncos. He's gotten better every single year he's been here. I can't really understand the idea of removing him. I think it's one of those pieces that you take him out of the defense and it really impacts everyone around him. I think I'm very concerned about the edge room, as I've kind of pointed out, and they will be hurt so much not having an interior presence. One thing that was so evident last year was how good he is at running these games with these edges, whether it's running, these twists, these different types of stunts, that he's able to do with these outside players that Baron Browning thrives at. And that was a big way he got pressures and sacks that I think, maybe those numbers get a little bit inflated when, or they look a little bit better when you're just kind of seeing them. But when you're actually watching tape, you're like, oh, these things are happening not only because Baron Browning is incredible, which I think he is, but because of the things that Draymond Jones is able to do on the interior. Man, I do not think it's a good idea to let him go, guys. He is so good against the pass. He's pretty good against the run. This guy doesn't really have many weaknesses to his game. doesn't get injured a lot. Like, I don't know, man. What do you think?
Yeah, Frankie, I'm kind of right there with you. I definitely actually am right there with you. I would pay Draymond Jones. You said it. He's the guy you reward. He is the guy you reward. He's gotten better every single season. He's a great football player. What are we doing here? You don't just let these unique guys leave. You don't. I don't. And why I say unique is because you're not replacing his talents. You're not. The Broncos have no one on the depth chart right now, or no one on the roster, and anyone under him in the depth chart that's going to even come close to replacing his talents. And if you're going to go out there and try to find or sign a guy that is, you're going to have to pay him the same amount of money. What are we doing then? At what point? What are we doing?
Exactly.
You're not replacing him. You're not going to draft a guy in the third round that's going to replace him. What's going on? And then the argument a lot of the time is, okay, I'm going to take that money and put it at defensive tackle. So cool. I'm opening. I'm in an ideal scenario. I am opening a hole just to fix another. Okay, cool. Like, great. We don't have Evero anymore. We don't have Fangio. We don't have Wade Phillips. What? Like, you're not replacing him. I definitely would sign him, especially if the rumors of how much he wants is true. I would just do it. I really would. So
it's not a lot of money.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy. He wants 60. I saw that. I was like, man, like if another team signs Draymond Jones for like 4 years, 60 mil, like on the dot, 62 and a half around there, like that bites, man. And here's what's crazy about it too. And I mean, maybe some people will think this good. I'm sure Zach would love this. That has to send a bad sign to Russell Wilson and about like what they think about this immediate future with Russ. Because there's no reason you're not keeping Draymond around if you really think you're in this win now window, straight up. Like, and exactly like you're saying, how many holes is the fan willing to open, you know? Because everyone's fine to let go of Draymond. Okay, that's fine. But everyone's also down to like, you know, cut Ronald Darby. So now you have a hole at corner that you're going to need to fill an outside corner. Damari can play too, but you're still going to need a fourth guy. Okay, that's fine. Everyone's so willing to move all these pieces to be able to fix these different holes. Guys, then the team is going to be really bad. And the locker room, which I think we're already pretty concerned about, like it's not going to get any better by making these decisions. Like it's just, it's a really risky thing to be able to start testing with. And I don't know, man. As far as how much I'd be willing to pay him, like if it's below like 20 million, maybe like 19, which I think you're able to do it. Just do it.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I'm hoping that it's just giving him the luxury to test the waters and see if someone will go and get him. And then he kind of, you know, they're trying to earn some trust back with Draymond. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that you would let him walk or go test it unless you weren't able to meet whatever price he was asking. That's the only thing that makes sense. Or if for whatever reason you're just like, I'm not going to the Broncos. I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. I don't care what you guys are doing. I'm not going. Which that doesn't sound like what it is. It sounds like he has a price in mind, and the Broncos aren't going there, and he's going to test free agency, which is a bummer. I also kind of want to add, and I want your opinion on this too, Frankie, because maybe you disagree with me. I think that if your plan is to go use that money elsewhere and you're not, you know, you're opening another hole, you might end up paying more. You might end up paying more in the long run, or you're going to have two lesser players. That's the most likely outcome, is that you're going to go sign a tackle for whatever price, and then you're going to use another chunk of that on defensive line, because you're not just going to have a blatant wide opening hole interior like it would be if you didn't sign somebody. So I think the odds are that you sign two guys that just are maybe cool,
right?
You know, and we're missing out on Draymond.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the big thing too is like it's not like the team like needs to open up a ton of money. Like the team is okay on money. There are moves they can make that they can open up some money, you know, like they're not just in this horrible spot where they can still do both. Like that's the big thing is like, I feel like not to like, you know, like dump on the Denver media or anything. I feel like there's this like certain perception that gets created in the fans' mind to kind of create some better leeway for the GM, where it's always a case of either or. Where like, you know, I don't want to bring it back because obviously it's all kind of worked out. They have Sean Payton now. You were told right away, why are they getting rid of Bradley Chubb? Oh, they have to pick between him or Draymond. Okay. Well, now now you got to pick between Draymond or fixing the offense. guys, like
Yeah, you're
that's not
right.
how
It's not how
you
it
see
works.
other teams get built. Yes, sometimes
Yeah.
you might have to spend to fix your team. You might have to be close to the edge of the cap sometimes. But like you don't just keep getting rid of good players. It doesn't make your team better.
Yeah, and the only really positive you would get out of it, and it leads to something you said earlier, in that it might just be that the Broncos aren't trying to win this year, because that's what this move would indicate to me. Is the comp pick. That's the only kind of positive that I feel like you could get out of it, and the Broncos really wouldn't be using it this year. So like, what? I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's a great move if the Broncos are truly trying to win now.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I just don't
some
see
news that
that.
happened the other day too is Daron Payne got tagged too. So another
Yeah.
thing to remember as the fan is Draymond Jones is the top defensive line free agent, like inarguably, and he's probably like a top 3 free agent in general right now. Like
Mhm.
there's the dream scenario where I guess no one wants to pay him, but this is the NFL, man. Like bad teams are on hot seats. These GMs need to save their jobs. These bad coaches need to save their jobs. Who helps you save your job? Draymond Jones. Like these good players that hit the market for seemingly no reason.
I have a
So,
question, Frankie. Would you bring back Ronald Darby or no?
so I'm of the mindset that I would like to try at a lesser number, but right now, probably not. Sadly, which
Yeah, because
sucks.
if it came down to it, like, you could get rid of other players to open up a room to potentially then go pay Draymond Jones. And I just wanted to bring that up to you, Frankie, because you mentioned it. Um, there's another way to get more money. There's
Yes.
other ways. Like, you can go do that, and then you can still have a little money to go do, or not even a little. You could have money to go fix your offense.
Yes.
That's an option. You just have to cut bait
That's
somewhere
an
else.
option.
And I don't
Graham
think Draymond
Glasgow's an
will.
option, like there's a ton of
Yeah.
options, right? Where like and we're not even trying to like throw guys on the bus. These are just guys
No,
that
because
like
Ronald Darby's a dog. Like, don't get me
Ronald Darby's
wrong.
awesome. And that's why
Yeah.
like I hope you guys understand my hesitancy because it's like, man, this guy is like a 30-year-old corner who just tore his ACL, the same ACL he already tore. And the year he came back from that torn ACL, he was pretty bad. So
Yeah.
like I get the the points of it, but man, being like Ronald Darby, I guess, is a bit of a luxury when I like you really kind of think about it. Like, what does this team need? But like, he is a wonderful luxury to have, man.
Oh, he's
Having a
awesome.
secondary with him, PS2, and Justin Simmons was so fun to watch for the time that it existed. And like, I hope we get more of it because and again, this isn't even trying to throw shade at Damari Mathis. I think Damari Mathis is totally a starting corner in the NFL.
No, totally. And then you
But
could also, if you did that, you could play with Damari Mathis role on your team as well. You could say, because I've always wanted to see him at nickel. I wanted to see him closer to the box. He's aggressive tackle. Last year he was kind of all over the place as a tackler. He would miss some. But one thing that I did love about his game, and even going back to college, is how aggressive he was as a tackler. It's not one of those guys that's making business decisions or getting out of the way or anything like that. It's cleaning up. It's just cleaning up his game, stuff like that. And I always wanted to see him closer to the box because of that instinct to go hit and tackle and play physical brand of football. So to add on to your point about Ronald Darby, I think people forget about when he was healthy this year, how he started this year. He was really
nice,
good.
man.
Surtain was getting all the credit, as he should. He's fantastic. He's not just fantastic. I think he's the best corner in football. I really do think that. But he was overshadowing Ronald Darby, who was phenomenal in his own right. So good. The Broncos, if they both stayed healthy and were playing at the level that they did to start, you could make a case that they had, I don't know the number one duo because those guys in Philly were pretty damn good this year, but maybe right there at 2.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. And something I want just to like wrap it up is like, guys, like in today's league, you need like 4 guys that you can start at corner. Like you don't just need like, oh, we have 2 starting corners and a nickel. Like, no, like you probably need at least 3, maybe 4 guys you're comfortable at least playing on the outside. Maybe you're not starters, but you're comfortable playing. Right now, I'd say Denver has like 2. If they were to let go of Darby, they have 3 with Darby, but like they'd have, I think 2. Like I'm not trying to dunk on. They have Surtain and Mathis right now. Yeah. On the inside, you have Kwan, who's another kind of question of like, okay, like this is another guy who's kind of dealt with some injuries.
Another damn good football player, though.
Another damn good football player, and that's it. But you also have Caden Stearns. Shout out Caden Stearns.
Shout out to Caden Stearns. He's awesome.
Caden Stearns is going to pop off next year. That dude's going to be flying around with that new hip. But
the new hip.
Just had to go off on that for a second. But what was it? I don't even remember where I was going. But yeah, you need enough players in your secondary. Like having an abundance of good corners is never a bad thing. And they do not have an abundance right now. They have 3 good outside corners and a good nickel corner.
Mm.
That's like good, but that's not like, oh man, that's in excess. Let's start like just getting rid of people, because like then you're gonna have issues. We all remember a couple of years ago, what was the game? I think it was against like Cleveland, or maybe that was inside linebacker, but there were some games where Vic Fangio was playing like dudes off the street at corner and at linebacker, just play like it was like, who's playing corner right now? What number is he wearing? Where did they get this? He's wearing 74. He's in the secondary. Like, it would make no sense.
Vic's injury luck was ridiculous.
Insane.
It was ridiculous. I'll never forget that Browns game where it was Johnson. There was the running back, like their 4th string running back at that time.
That's what it was.
Crazy.
Who was the linebacker? Not to try to throw shit.
Yeah, no, that's what I was just getting to. You got the words out of my mouth. I don't remember the name of the linebackers, but I remember that we were playing like practice squad dudes and other guy that he just signed. It like that was some of the worst NFL linebacking play. It might actually, I'm going to go out and say it was the worst linebacker play I had ever seen in the NFL during that game. It was so bad. Like, oh my God, people were running in all different directions. Like, no one knew it was going on.
Ernest Johnson, I think, was the back. He should be dedicating, like, because he's still gotten contracts, I'm pretty sure. It has to be based on, people have to be throwing on that tape before they sign him. And they're like, this is the guy, man.
Yeah.
Look at what he's doing to these linebackers. Oh my God, he's shifting gaps. And this is like, oh, well, he's throwing them a bone every single time. He's like, you guys did it for me.
Well, we were just talking about Ronald Darby. Frankie, I thought you brought us a lot of good points about, how deep that room needs to be. Well, let's take it full circle. NFL Scouting Combine. Tomorrow, DBs. Is there anyone in there that you feel like the Broncos could take a look at even earlier with their picks?
Early on, I'm honestly not sure. I like a lot of the corner class. I think the 2 Carolina corners are guys I like a lot. Yeah. Both Cam Smith and Darius Rush. They both seem like very intelligent players that I think are going to test pretty okay.
I just have to say, there's a different Cam Smith that comes in the draft every single year.
It does feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, keep going though.
But Cam Smith will probably be like a 1st-round corner, 2nd-round corner. It's kind of weird. The top of this year's corner class is so weird because everyone's trying to find their own Patrick Surtain now. They all want the 6'2", 210-pound, but moves like he's like 5'9", 160.
Yeah, good luck.
But like he has the ball skills and the technique and all this beautiful stuff. You're not going to find him, but they're going to keep looking for him. And what's kind of funny is this year's there's kind of like 5 or 6 of those guys that I think could legitimately push for that like CB1 spot. Like Christian Gonzalez is a guy who's going to run tomorrow.
He's freak.
He was incredible at Colorado, and then he was at Oregon. And those Oregon guys always seem to they test well because they have one of those track teams. Not that he was on the track team, but they seem to just teach their guys, like, here's how you're going to run if you have to run in like a professional setting. Tyreek Stevenson from Miami, I've heard things that like he might end up running in like the 4.3s, the low 4.3s. I'm excited to see what he does. He's a fun corner to watch. Riley Moss looks super crazy. He was on Feldman's freak list. He'll be fun to see what he does. I'm pretty sure he like jumps out of the gym, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he has like a 40+ inch vertical, so that's always crazy to see. But yeah.
There you go. And would you feel comfortable drafting a corner, just position wise, with your first pick in the draft this year for the Broncos, 3rd round?
I mean, it's kind of funny because they do have the back-to-back. So, I mean, it kind of depends upon what that second pick would be, as much of a cheat to that answer as that is.
Yeah.
But, like, I'll be honest, guys, at the 67th, yeah, if it's the best player on their board, yeah, because it's the 67th pick. I think if you're able to find a guy who can start, if you're able to find a guy who you think can contribute to this team in a positive way at the 67th and 68th pick, you take that player. You're like, if you're just going to pigeonhole yourself to a position in the 3rd round, you're going to have a bad time. it's not going to be fun for you. And I'll be honest, guys, with, George has done a pretty good job every year. And I'll say this before free agency starts. He supplements his needs pretty good. Like, I don't think there's going to be a glaring hole on draft night for the Broncos. Not to say that, there won't be a position we all want. I'm sure it'll be like tackle still, but there will at least be some startable options. You usually see him dump a good amount of resources, whether they're on quality players or guys that are injury prone or not. You usually see him dump a good amount of resources in free agency towards those needs. So again, BPA, best pick available. And that's something George Paton's done and honestly done pretty well. And he's made me eat my words in a few picks, but BPA, get your best player on the board. I don't care really what position they play. It could be a quarterback, honestly, for all I care. If they really like Hendon Hooker and think he could be the future and he's sitting there, take him. Let Sean Payton develop him.
I totally agree. When you get that, Frankie, when you get that late in the draft, I mean, this is what you were saying, like, you can't be picky on position. You really that's hard to do. You start just trying to get the best guys.
Mm-hmm.
You need to fill spots on your roster. You're not going just like who's the best tackle available in the third round. Chances are, you go deeper and deeper in the draft, the less likely you are going to hit on somebody. So I'm not going to take a guy on my board that's ranked 10th just because I want that position when my first guy is on the board. Like, that just doesn't make sense.
Nope.
The odds of the person hitting a lot lower. So I'm taking the guy that I think is going to be good. That's kind of what it is about. When you get that late, you can't really be picky. Now, maybe if the Broncos went back-to-back corner, I'm probably a little pissed off. But if you're drafting,
we're gonna complain on draft night.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Frankie and I will be yelling. We might even just do like a little Twitter Spaces just to yell. Then hop off real quick or something like that. Maybe emergency pod. The Broncos drafted 2 back-to-back corners.
Double A battery was sitting right there, and they took a kicker. What happened?
Yep. I mean, I was so angry last year. Shouts out Nick Benito. I still have faith.
Travis Jones. We all wanted Travis Jones. Hey, you know who you.
That was so sad. I wanted Travis Jones so bad, and Travis Jones is such a good football player. Like, you can't tell me now if we had Travis Jones. Now I'm looking at the interior defensive line. A little different. That's all I'm saying. A little different.
Maybe you take Maybe you take Zach Tom last year at some point. You're not too worried about right tackle. I'm not going to act like I've loved what George Paton does, but he does usually take the best player on their board, which I don't hate.
Yeah. He definitely does. And I can't argue with him. That's his board, right? I'm sure Benito was his guy. I always go back and forth on this. It's hard for me to complain because I'm always like, the Broncos should take the best player available. And then you just kind of forget that they have different best player availables than you. Yeah. like my best player available without question, Travis Jones was my guy. But I think Payton probably went with his.
It'll be interesting too, seeing how Sean Payton impacts like the philosophies of all this, because I'd say I don't want to say George has been conservative because that's not what I'd say, but I'd say George has had a very smart approach. I think he takes a very tactical, and I'm not trying to say that the Saints didn't do that with Sean Payton, but I feel like we saw the Saints be a lot more aggressive for guys they wanted. I mean, specifically, I'm just thinking of when they went up to get Davenport and stuff like that. That I wonder if we do see something like that, where, we see him prefer to kind of rebuild the offense through free agency and kind of not have anything else like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're sitting there here's another thing. Like, if you're going in there thinking, I'm going to build my offensive line, and then I don't have a first or second round pick, I'm going to fix it with the third round pick. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go draft my starter for this year in the third round. It's not going to work. It isn't going to work. The odds of that are so small. But Frankie, tomorrow, Friday, I'm going to be sitting there watching the NFL Scouting Combine. That's what I'm going to be doing. Now, while I'm watching that, I'm going to be drinking a Weinsteffen, specifically my favorite, the Hefeweiss beer. It is the benchmark of the wheat style and the number one selling wheat beer in the United States. It's a thirst-quenching and refreshing 5.4% ABV. It's hazy, fruity, All the hef beers, you're going to get banana cloves. That's kind of the flavor you're going to get in there. When I say banana, people don't really understand. It's not like a profound banana. It's not banana flavored. It's just the style of the hef beer has a similar taste to something like that. So try it. It's effervescent. It's fantastic. It's the highest rated German wheat beer available in the United States. So I think everyone has to drink one, like Frankie is right now.
Weihenstephan. It's absolutely delicious. It's a really good beer. I've been wanting to have it out of the tap. I've seen a couple breweries and bars in Milwaukee that I'll have to, make the voyage out to so I can try it, just straight from the beautiful source. Mm-hmm. But yeah, go have a Weihenstephan day. Go get yourself a 6-pack. Watch the combine this weekend if you're of age. Don't drive anywhere. Be completely safe. But get a little tipsy. Have a Weihenstephan. Have a nice responsible evening.
Yes. Yes. Hard to say, easy to drink. That's the way. But okay. There is a question in the comment section.
I like Bill's question, so I want to hear your opinion because I have my opinion.
Okay. He says, if it comes down to it, do you think Sean Payton or George Payton would have final say if they didn't agree? I'd say Sean. Thoughts? I would also probably lean Sean. That's just he has more influence in the team right now. That's my take. He definitely.
I was going to completely agree.
If it comes down to it, it's the guy that I don't know, probably the guy you just traded a first-round pick for. That's what I would say has final say in the locker room. I'd love this question though, Bill, because I think people need to understand like every single year. And Frank, you even said this earlier in the podcast. These guys their shelf life in the NFL is not that crazy. And every single season they've been a year longer without having major success is another year off they get. Like you're taking away your shelf life every single season.
Yep.
And the new guy in town, Sean Payton, he is the guy. You traded a first-round pick for him. It's in his very first season. The Broncos are going to want to see, and the Broncos ownership is going to want to see what a Sean Payton-looking team looks like is. That's what they're going to be looking for. So I think it's Sean Payton.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Everything you said, I think Sean Payton's going to be the face of the franchise. I think the ownership kind of gave him the keys. But I will say, from what I've seen, and this is all media stuff, like this is just watching the interviews and they're acting really chummy. I think George Payton and Sean Payton are gonna be like a really healthy working relationship. Now that's not to say that I've come from, and I was saying that I thought George Payton was gonna be fired right after the draft. I've kind of come around on that. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that I think there's a really good chance that they end up actually like working in unison pretty well together. I'm excited to see what we get those. Excuse me. The Weihenstephan came back up a little bit. That was gross. You get to see those little glimpses into the team's war rooms and stuff. I'm excited to see how the interactions are taking place in there because do we see George just kind of being the guy seeming to run the show and we just kind of see Sean off in the corner just doing his little I guess he doesn't have a beard. I don't know why I'm doing this, but he's kind of doing his little evil planning in the corner. We don't really see him having too much of an integral role. Will they both be working super hard together? I think that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you, Bill, for commenting. Please, if anyone has any more questions, if you're watching through Twitter right now, I highly recommend during Frankie and I's show that you hop into the YouTube chat. We're on the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube every single Thursday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Hop in and have a chat with us because we're going to answer your guys' question. I want you guys to have the chance to be part of what we're talking about. So thank you, Bill. Shout out to everybody that was watching via Twitter nonetheless. But I think that's all for today's show. So Frankie, where can they find your awesome work, man?
Frankie's Film on Twitter. Yeah, that's me. I'm Frankie's Film. I post film. I post tape. I post some memes, some thoughts, usually on the Broncos, but I try to, work my way around the league. A lot of draft prospect stuff. So, it's draft season. If you're, just getting into it, you're just seeing like a guy post some crazy numbers on the combine. Heck, there's probably a good chance I got some film of him. Like most of the guys today, I'm pretty sure I've got at least a game or two cut up on my channel that you can come look at.
Yes, sir.
Follow me on TikTok, Frankie's Film NFL. I take the film I put on the Twitters, I put it on the TikTok. So if you'd prefer to watch your video stuff on the TikTok, go do that. And yeah, where can they find your stuff, Joey?
Yes,
more
everyone.
Importantly,
please follow me at JR Drafts. It's all I really have for today. Follow me at JR Drafts. Listen to Let's Talk Broncos. Those are the things that I would highly recommend you do. To find me, I'm tweeting a ton. I'm talking football. I'm podcasting like every single day of my entire life. So if you enjoy listening to me, you're in luck. And then also, I just want to say, yes, please go follow Frankie. He's a terrific Twitter follow. So, but guys, until next time, and until next Thursday, where there may be something crazy happening, please tune in. I'll talk to you guys later.
Let's ride.
Please do.